I loved this book. This was perfection. I love it. It's probably going to be on one of my top books of the year because I just think it was so well done. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and we are doing October's reading wrap up, and I have had an amazing reading month. I feel so happy telling you that. September just wasn't that good, and October reading has been immaculate. I have loved it so much. But we do this in the smash or pass way of doing it. Like, I don't know if it's a way of doing it, but it's just we smash or pass the books. So I'm going to tell you all the books that I read in October and whether I would smash or pass. But before we get into that, I just wanted to say a thank you to Readathon. So Readathon create book lights and they are partnering with me for this video, so thank you so much. The light that I got sent to talk about is the tri-headed book light, and this is amazing. I absolutely love this. I have been looking for a decent book light for a little while, especially with this year with the amount of holidays that I've been going on, and even just going round to my partner's when he's wanting to go to sleep and I actually want to stay up and read a little bit. I don't want to bother him with the massive bedroom light, so I wanted a little small light for me to have, and I just haven't found anything that's worked until this one. I like the fact that it's able to stand on its own on a desk, or it can clip onto your book with this little clamp bit, and it's got rubber parts so it's not going to damage your book in any way, which is great. It also has quite a few different functions on it. So we have a different brightness one, so you can up the amount of brightness. You can have it quite dimmed or you can have it really bright. It actually gets really bright, which is pretty awesome. And there's also a temperature setting on this as well, so you can have bright cool light, which is nice and bright, or what I prefer is the softer warm toned light. I like the fact that the tri bit is actually maneuverable, so you can kind of maneuver a bit to where you want that light to shine. And one thing I was playing around with yesterday with it is actually being able to create photos for Instagram with this. I really like the photos on Instagram where they have like candles and books involved, but it kind of gets ruined whenever I have the overhead light on, whereas this little book light gives just the right amount of light that it will illuminate the book that I'm trying to show, but not too much that it ruins the vibe that I'm going for. I'll show you an example of a picture I took with it yesterday, and I'm really pleased with the results. So I like the fact that this light not only works for reading, great for that background light for Instagram photos that I want to be taking. Multi-use, I like that. But if you are interested in getting your very own book reading light, I do have a link for you in the description below. It is an affiliate link, so there's no extra cost to yourselves, but it just means that I get a little bit of percentage off of those sales if you would like one. I would recommend. You're going to be seeing this a lot. So thank you so much to Readathon for partnering me for this video and being able to talk to you about this light. But with that out of the way, let's get into all the books that I read this month. Honestly, I feel like we're going to have a heck load of smashes. Have I had any DNFs this month? Technically no. I did start 2 ebooks that I didn't finish, but also I barely read into them, so I'm not really counting that as actually starting to then DNF them. But let's get straight into all the other books. So we have The House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. I recently finished this one a couple days ago and I did enjoy this one. I'm going to give this one a smash. This is a gothic leaning story with vampire influence. So we have the elite of society. People that live in the north have lots of money, they're the elite of society, and we have our main character Marion, who comes from the south, that is very poor. She struggles with trying to do her day-to-day, just trying to stay alive. Her brother is really horrible and takes the money that she earns to then spend on basically this like opium type drug. It's really horrible, and so she has this opportunity to go to the north as a blood maid, and she takes it. Now a blood maid is someone that for their mistress or master they bleed for them. Like the elite of society in the north drink blood, do this for healing properties. Except things get really dark. It's eerie and I really liked it. I think it's a really good book. I like the interpretation of vampires in this book and the way that it does leave you to question that maybe not every elite person in the north is actually a vampire, but it could definitely be questioned about the House of Hunger that they are vampiric in nature, and I really enjoyed that. This was a really good one for October, and I did end up annotating, although not loads, just had 3 tabs. The dark red is for quotes that I really liked because I think there were some really good ones in here. The dark green is for social commentary. There's definitely a lot of that, which you would expect with having the clear divide in society, in the rich and powerful to those that are struggling to survive, and the comments on that. And then we have navy for all the things that were really sinister and unusual and just made me think think, things aren't quite as good as what Marion had hoped they would be. A good one to read for Gothic season. Another smash is The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. I buddy read this with Christina. I really enjoyed this. This is the 4th book in the Thursday Murder Club series, and I had such good fun with it. The Thursday Murder Club series is where we have 4 elderly people that get together every Thursday in their retirement home to solve cold cases until an actual murder happens in the 1st book, and it builds up down to this 4th one. We have a lot of the characters that they meet in each of the mysteries in each of the books that all kind of stay with them. I really enjoy the banter. In this one, this book ended up being so much more emotional. I feel like the murder mystery kind of took a little bit of a backseat in this one, and we were focusing a lot more on one of the characters, their husband, who suffers with dementia, and we were really looking into that, and it was very emotional, not just as a reader but also for all of our different characters. I think it was handled really well in here. I think it was done with a lot of care, and I really liked the respect that we had towards the character. I think it worked really well. Again, this is one that I ended up tabbing. Again, just 3 tab. We had the light lilac, very pale tab, but that was for funny, and I think you really needed that. You needed that lightheartedness to go with the next tab, which is emotional. It was so emotional in this book, like it almost got me to tears several times, because I just think the way it was handled was done really well. So you really needed those funny, lighthearted moments, the banter between our 4 characters. You really needed that for a good balance. And then the last one is purple for the mystery elements, anything pertaining to the mystery, really attached to the characters. So I think it worked really well to have the mystery take a little bit more of a backseat and be able to explore the characters a bit more. So yeah, really liked this. Smash. Highly recommend this series, especially if you do like a murder mystery series. I did read 2 short stories from this collection. So it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Other Stories by Robert Louis Stevenson. I only had 2 short stories left of this collection. One of them was Markham, and the other one is Ware of Hermanston. Probably mispronouncing those names. For me, you know what, I'm thinking I'm probably going to give this a pass, because I don't think you need to read this. I said that in the vlog as well. I don't think you need to read this one. I really wanted to finish out all the short stories in this book, so that's the reason why I read them, but I also think you really don't have to read them. They're lesser known, and I think that's for a reason. It does have interesting topics. Like Robert Louis Stevenson does do a good job of talking about humanity, morality, and questioning different things, getting their characters to question it. And I like that about his books, but I also feel like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is obviously the most popular one for a reason, and I think that kind of covers most of what was being talked about in these 2 short stories anyway. The first one, we have someone that kills someone and then has lots of regret and that about it, very similar to Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, but just with less madness side of things. And then the Ware of Hermanston was more of a familial story. We are looking at this family. The father is a judge, and his son starts questioning, but if the Bible tells us that thou shalt not judge, how can you be a judge? How can you judge people's lives? How can we do that if God says that thou shalt not judge? And so it kind of questions that morality of it. Again, it was fine, but I don't think you actually need to read it. Then we have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This was the Discord book club pick for the month, and I enjoyed this one. It seemed to be that the overall consensus was that it was a good one. Disturbing. And it was very, very disturbing. It worked really well though, so I think I'm going to give this one a smash. So this one, we're following our main character, Naomi, and she gets told by her father that she needs to go see her cousin, who has married into the Doyle family, and she sent a very disturbing letter, and the father's a bit like, we need to see what's going on, so you're going to go there and find out what's happening to your cousin. She sees that this house is really quite old and dilapidated. There's a lot of like weird, unusual things going on. Head of the family is really creepy. There's a lot of talk about eugenics and stuff that made me feel really uncomfortable. I just think it was really well done, but it is a disturbing book. It is a gothic book. I wouldn't say it's anything like horrifying going on in here, although it does reiterate that mushrooms are, well, they're gross. They're gross in this book, and I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I really enjoyed just the gothic atmosphere of this book. I enjoyed that a lot. Would recommend if you're looking for something that's a little bit weird. It kind of reminded me of What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I also read this one in October and they are very similar to one another. Obviously they do it in different ways. If you liked one, then you'll probably like the other one. So I'm going to give this one a smash. By the same token, I'm also going to give What Moves the Dead a smash by T. Kingfisher. I really enjoyed this one. This is a retelling of Fall of House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, and I think this is so much better than the original. Like, I really do. I like the way it expanded on things. This does have more of a humour, light-hearted tone to it. Mexican Gothic doesn't have. This one has a bit more of that light-heartedness. I don't know, there's something about the way T. Kingfisher does her characters that always makes me feel like her horror is always tempered with this humour that runs through it. So I think it works really well. But we're following a character. They received a letter from their childhood friends saying, you know, you need to come here. So they go. They are a retired, is it captain? I think it's captain. And that does play a lot. We get comments on like PTSD. There's just weird stuff going on. Again, we have a horse. No. I mean, we do have a horse in this book, but we have a house that is fallen into disrepair. There's really weird things going on. Hares that live around the house act really weird and lethargic and really kind of creepy, and that's kind of now affecting Madeline Usher, who is starting to sleepwalk. Our main character, Alex, is very much like, I am not comfortable with what's going on here. We also have a doctor there. They're really trying to solve what's going on. I enjoyed this one. I think it was really good. I feel like I've done a really like haphazard way of explaining what happened in this book, but I just think it was really eerie. I really enjoyed the descriptions of the house that's fallen into disrepair, the things that are affecting the surrounding nature. We also have someone who is a scientist that focuses on mushrooms, and she's a really interesting character, and she ends up being very helpful to the storyline and to trying to counter what's happening. We also have a second book coming out actually in the new year for this book to continue on with this, so I'm really intrigued to see how we're going to continue on from there. Both of these two books, Mexican Gothic and What Moves the Dead, I think if you liked one, you're probably going to like the other. I don't know which one I prefer more, to be quite honest. I feel like part of me is actually leaning to What Moves the Dead because I like the humour aspect in this. I feel like it just added a nice little lightness to it, but I think they're both done really well, and I liked the way my camera's doing that thing again where it jumps around, but I liked the way they both explored this book and like this concept of having a haunted house and having mushrooms involved, but both doing it in slightly different ways. I think it was really good. Okay, speaking of The Fall of the House of Usher, I did read The Fall of House Usher from this short story collection from Edgar Allan Poe. I didn't like it. I really don't like Edgar Allan Poe's writing at all. I cannot get on with it. Can I see how influential his works have been? Yes. Can appreciate it for that, but as me actually just reading it, I don't like the writing style. I just don't find it interesting. There were so many questions that I had at the end of that story. I was a bit like, but what was the point? You've kind of given us this start of a tale, but you've not actually explored it. You've not actually explained anything, and that's why I appreciated What Moves the Dead so much more, because we did get that exploration and kind of explanation for things which you just don't get in the original story, and it just frustrates me. So in all honesty, I kept this short story collection to read The Fall of House of Usher before I read What Moves the Dead, and now I'm going to get rid of it. I do not enjoy this short story collection, so this is a pass. A book that is for me though is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. I loved this book. This was perfection. I enjoyed it so much. I did so many tabs. I could have done so many more exploring other things in this book. So we're following our character who, well, they're an interviewer and they've got this opportunity to interview Lewis. He's a vampire and he's telling his story of how he became a vampire, things leading up to, well, now. And I loved it. I loved it so much. The writing is so decadent. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's fantastic. I really enjoyed this. I had so many tabs going and I was honestly surprised because I expected to like this book. I just didn't expect to use this many tabs in one book and still have the possibility for more. There is a whole thing that I think I could have explored with this book, which I was, at the time when I was at that point in the book, I was very tired and I didn't focus on it and I didn't decide to tab it, but upon reread I know I'm definitely going to be exploring that, and that's all to do with Claudia, who is someone that that we meet a little bit later in this book as a young child, and things get very dark. To go through the tabs, the first tab in this like mustardy colour is for quotes that I love, which I used a lot because the writing is gorgeous. This pink colour for relationships. Initially this was just for Lewis and Lestat, but I ended up using it just to encompass relationships in general. I will say that a lot of relationships with vampires are toxic. I think it's a really interesting portrayal of toxic love. I feel like there's a whole essay in there about the fact that it's a common thing to use vampires to portray a toxic love. We could definitely do a deep dive into why that is and how maybe we find it easier to read about that because they're not human. And the fact that being in that sort of relationship, it is dealing with monsters. It's horrible. So I feel like there's a whole thing you could definitely dissect about that. But moving on, we have this kind of more darker brownish colour, and that's for death, passion, when drinking blood. The imagery around death in this book is absolutely stunning. Not just around them drinking blood, but also just the way they talk about death, the way they talk about time is also a vampire because it just sucks the life out of everything. They were so beautiful. So yeah, so I decided to tab all of those moments. We then have this more green colour, and that is discussions on morality / humanity. There is a lot of that in this book. Definitely more at the start of the book than towards like the middle half and latter end, which is a bit of a shame because I loved those moments in this book. I think they were absolutely brilliant. Love to have had more of that. Then we have this darker blue, and this is for social commentary, which is a tab I like to use a lot, as you would have noticed. But yeah, there's a lot of social commentary in this book, especially because it spans quite a long period of time, because obviously vampires are immortal, so we get a lot of commentary across the eras. Sorry about the lighting, it's a bit of a cloudy day. And then the final one is this kind of like lighter green, army green colour, I don't know, and that's for Dracula references because there was definitely references to the original Dracula book in here. I really loved this. I thought this was fantastic. An amazing book. Like I say, I want to reread it. There's more things that I want to pull from it. This is probably going to end up being the most annotated book that I have because, like I say, I can definitely add in more tabs around Claudia. I think she deserves her own 1 or 2 tabs just to herself because it was so good. Okay, let's go back to some murder mysteries. So we have The Night in Question by Kathleen Glasgow and Liz Lawson. This is the second book in the Agathas series, starting off with the Agathas. I love this. This is a YA cozy murder mystery and I love this series. We follow 2 characters. One is Alice, and Alice was the queen bee of the school until something happens in the first book, or kind of actually before the first book, where she starts losing her friends and everything around her, but she doesn't really care. She's obsessed with Agatha Christie, has read every single one of the Agatha Christie book, believes that she can do a really good job of sleuthing, detective, finding out what's going on, which comes in really handy when there is a murder in the first book and the police pin it on the wrong person. And so she's like, that's not gonna happen. We're going to solve this. And the we is also Iris. Now Iris is a really smart person, but she comes from the other side of town where things are a little bit more rough. She has a really difficult home life. She joins in with Alice to solve these mysteries. She was initially there to actually become a tutor and help Alice with her grades, and instead gets pulled into all of that. Really enjoyed this second book because they have another mystery to solve, but you also have a lot of character growth and development in here. I really enjoyed it. I think it was really, really interesting, and I don't know, I just have so much fun with these. Again, this is a book that I tabbed, only 3 tabs again. We have pink for clues, purple for suspects, and then blue for Agatha Christie book mentions, which I enjoyed that. I love this so much, and I think because I enjoy Agatha Christie so much, I really love how we have a character that is obsessed with Agatha Christie, and it's a big part of the book, and I really enjoy it. So yeah, this was really fun, and that's what these are. This is just a fun time. I really enjoy solving these just for the fun. So yeah, this is really good. Would recommend if you're ever looking for a YA murder mystery series. I know obviously you've got Truly Devious and also A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. They're equally very good series, but I think the Agathas, it needs more love. But talking about Agatha Christie, I also read The Moving Finger, and I loved this. This was so good. Of course it was good. It's an Agatha Christie book. Can I just say though, I solved this, which was great. Cannot solve an actual Agatha Christie though. Can't do it. Just can't do it. I I'm really bad at trying to solve these. These I only had 2 tabs that I used. Honestly, I should have used a third for quotes that I love because there was a lot of really nice quotes in here. But I ended up using the lighter colour for clue and the blue for suspects/suspicions. I get it wrong every single time. I failed in my detectiveness. But I love this. I think it is really fun. I do love Agatha Christie books. I love how they're just cozy. We have this mystery that's going on. We're trying to solve it. And then Miss Marple swoops in at the end. And I like these about these books. I think in the, don't quote me on this, but I believe in the Hercule Poirot books, he has a lot more of an active part in the books, whereas in these ones Miss Marple tends to just kind of come in at the end. You have the actual mystery going on, it gives you a chance to try and solve things and try and put your suspects together, and then at the end Miss Marple kind of comes in and she kind of just solves it all, and she's only there for like a few minutes, but it works and I really like it. I really enjoy these books, so I will be continuing on with my Miss Marple reads. Really enjoyed this. Very good book. Oh, that's also a smash. The murder mysteries, smashes. Love those. Another smash that we have is a book I finished up yesterday, Monday? A couple days ago. And that's The Liar's Knot by M.A. Carrick. Love this book. This is the second book in the Rook and the Rose trilogy, a trilogy I really enjoy. It's a Venetian inspired fantasy and I love it so much. The first book we are following, well, we're following lots of different characters, but the main plot line is we have Wren, and Wren is this con artist and she decides to con her way into this elite society so that she can be accepted into their family, written onto their charter, so that she can then start siphoning away their funds to support herself and her sister. Alongside this though, we have a further plot line of these children that are going missing that then come back but they're unable to sleep, and we have this whole kind of nightmare plot line going on that Wren also gets caught up in. We also have vigilante characters. There is so much going on in that first book, and then it all kind of expands but like also ties up really nicely in this second book. Like, I think the character growth in this book was phenomenal. It was done so well. I really enjoyed it. We get more of a focus into 2 of the side characters that we have in the first book, and I really appreciated that, especially the way they all kind of come together towards the end and they end up battling this bigger overarching thing that's happened, which is also behind what happened in the first book. Like, I really like it. I think the plot development in this is done really well, tied with the character development. It ended up being a really good read. Highly recommend. There is so much to talk about in this book. You've got the different magic systems. There's like 2 or 3 different magic systems in this, but it all kind of links together, which I really like. Also, just the setting. If you're looking for a book that has LGBTQ plus representation in here, it has loads of it, which I highly recommend. So I know lots of people do want more fantasy books with that in there. Recommend this series. So yeah, highly recommend this series. This is a definite smash. I think it's really good, really fantastic, and I just found myself falling back into this world. Another thing that was really helpful with this book is that we actually had a recap of the first book, and I liked that because it recapped all of the major plot points that were happening in that first book. There is a lot going on, so it was quite a lot to wrap your head around at first, but I don't know, it just works for me. I really enjoyed it. Another smash is Mary's Monster by Lita Judge. This was fantastic. This is a biography of Mary Shelley. Loved this book. It was so good. So we follow Mary Shelley from actually when she was a child before she married Shelley, and everything that went on. Like, she had such a hard life, dealt with so much, and I just think this was done so beautifully. I really enjoyed it. We have gorgeous illustrations throughout, and this was done in like poetry format, but I really enjoyed it. I think it was just done so well. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the exploration of Mary Shelley, everything that went into the creation of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's creature, and how that was born out of all these experiences that she's had, and all of it, her rage, her heartache, her want for love, all of it, and that's what poured into this story. I just think it was phenomenal. It was absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed this. Would recommend, especially if you want to know a little bit more about Mary Shelley. This was fantastic. I adored this book. Highly recommend. I love it. It's probably going to be on one of my top books of the year because I just think it was so well done. Really enjoyed this one, and yeah, I really would recommend, like, if you want to read more about Mary Shelley, or even just more about how Frankenstein's monster was created, read this book. Okay, the last few. So we have a couple of indie authors that got sent to me from your paper quest, so thank you. This was a really interesting split for me. So we have Mordax, which is by Mark Mekaricha. Sorry, I always pronounce this wrong, I'm sorry. This was the first book in a series, and this is kind of like a lighter smash. Nice kiss on the lips here. I enjoyed this one. This is the sort of book that I want to read after I've done an early shift at work, because it's engaging enough for me to continue reading it, but it also doesn't require a lot of brain power, which I really like. In this one, we're following a main character, Harriet, who is in this village where a plague goes through the village, and then this person comes along that is suddenly able to kind of fix what's happened, and they're like, excuse me, why are you able to do this so easily? And it's very suspicious. We also have this doctor called Lady Hawks that's trying to perfect humanity and has this remedy for like sleep, except everything's a little bit darker than it should be. I really enjoyed the setting of this book as well. I enjoyed sleepy village vibes to it, but also with having this like what the hell's going on and a bit of like a mad doctor moment going on. I think it worked really well. But then on the other side to that, I have The Troop of Shadows by Jenin Zabrinsky, and this one ended up being a pass for me. It was good. Again, it works for that. I want something lighter, but this one is a lot more plot heavy focus. There's a lot more fight scenes and everything in there, so it's a lot more fast paced, but it just wasn't interesting enough for me to continue on with the series. This was an interesting world as well. We have these beings that are kind of like changelings that can adapt and hide themselves based on their surroundings, but also their emotions can also change their skin colour as well. There's a lot of unusual things going on, and I liked the ideas behind all of this. I'm just not a massive plot driven reader, so I prefer a bit more slower character development, which I feel like we didn't get as much in this book. Then we have a couple of manga which I read for the Tackle Your TBR readathon. So I read volume 12 and 13 of Tokyo Ghoul. I really enjoy this series. I thought the 13th novel or volume was going to be the last one. It's not. There's 14. So now I've got to try and find that, because I've not seen that anywhere before, so I need to try and get my hands on that so I can actually finish out this manga series. But I really enjoy it. We are following a main character who has one foot in the human world, one foot in the ghoul world, and ghouls look like humans, except they consume human flesh to survive and have these, there's a word for it that I can never pronounce, but basically they can turn into like their ghoul versions of themselves, where they have more like extra things that come out of their bodies that they can use to attack people. I really like it though. I think the series is really good. There was a couple of like slower moments. I mean, I think you're always going to get that with a manga series that's very long. Granted, it's not that long compared to other series, but I am intrigued to see how this is all going to wrap up. Really thought the 13th one was the last one, and it just wasn't, but both of these were smashes. I do enjoy this manga series. And then the final book for the month of October, I feel like we've read loads this month. Like, we've done a really good job, and like I say, I've had a really good reader month. But the final book is The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Core, and I enjoyed this book, so this is another smash. This is very small, but it's also really eerie, and I really enjoyed it. It was really good. So we're following a mermaid, and this mermaid has a plague doctor, I wouldn't say husband, more partner situation going on. That's also very dark and twisty. But they come across this little village, and these children are being ruled by these 3 other doctors, I'm going to call them. And yeah, things are a lot darker than they should be. It is very eerie, very gory, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And at the very end of the book, we get a bit more about the mermaid's backstory, which is actually a retelling of The Little Mermaid. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed the retelling aspect. I also liked how the retelling talked about other versions of the Little Mermaid story and how it's been interpreted in so many different ways. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good. And I would recommend, if you want just like a short little that's gory and horrific. It worked. It worked really well. I really enjoyed this. I read this as part of the 24-hour readathon as well. Plus, I do love this edition. Those end papers are gorgeous. But yeah, this was good. I enjoyed that. So there we are. That is all the books I read in October. It was a lot, and you can definitely see the more darker, creepy theme that I had going on. I read a lot of gothic books, read a lot of murder mystery books. Like, I just had a really, really good reading month. It's been absolutely fantastic and exactly what I needed. So yeah, I've loved it. Please let me know if you've read any of these books and what your favourite read of October was. But I'm going to stop talking because I've been talking for over 30 minutes and I am in need of a drink. So I'm going to go. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Glausant for once again sending me the Try head book light, which I absolutely love. And just a reminder that I do have the affiliate link in the description below if you would like to get your own book light. So thank you once again for watching, as I've said like several times by now, but thank you so much. If you have made it for this far, then let's put a bat in the comments below, and we're going to leave it there. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe and comment. Those 3 things really help this channel grow. My social media links will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the very next video.